In this tutorial, we're going to talk briefly about cloth and geometry that you can create that will appear more like cloth. It's a very simple approach, very quick for you to get some cloth-like shapes on your characters. Now, this is not to be confused with the cloth simulation that we'll be doing as an add-on to the course, hopefully later in the rigging. So for now, though, this will give you some geometry that's very cloth-like, so which then can be solved like a cloth when we get into the simulation. So the first step is to, I'll go ahead and delete these, start again, is to bring in your character. And in this case, I'm just going to go to my top-down and create a cylinder, just so I have something visual that I can be working with. And I'm going to bring it on up here. So in my top-down view, and I'm using T on my keyboard to get there, T and F for front, L for left. I'm going now to the Create panel, and I'm going to Shapes, where I can pick up a line tool. And so I'm just going to give myself a line around the, and I'm going to close the spline. This is around the waistline of the character. And this portion we're going to create something that will look like a drapey skirt. So once I have my line, I'm going to the Modify panel, and if your line is coming out looking angular like this, you just want to have the correct initial type selected. So go ahead and undo that and select on Smooth, and you'll get this nice smooth line rather. Alright, so let's go ahead and delete that. We'll come back to our original line. And we're going over here to the Modify panel. Open that so you can see your sub-objects, and I'm going to select on Spline. Now when I come down here, and I rotate it around by holding my Option key down and my middle mouse button, I'm going to click on my Move. Oops, that's not going to bring it up. And I'm going to move that up to the location that my waist may be, and I'm going to bring that rather tight in there, because as the cloth simulates, it will stretch depending on the options that you have chosen as it solves. So I'm going to bring that rather tight in there, and you can get much tighter around your waist as long as there is some distance away from your collision object or your body for your model. I go to Spline. I'm going to select on the spline, and once it's red, I'm going to hold my Shift key down and drag to create another spline. Now from there, I can go ahead and scale that out just a little bit. And as an example, I'm going here to Vertex, move a few verts in here so that you can get the appearance more of a drape. Okay, and now that we have this, we're going to select on that spline and Option key down, left mouse button, I'm going to drag again, and I'm going to scale that up just a little bit more, and maybe rotate that ever so slightly. And now with my Control key down, I'm going to select those, and I'm going to put a modifier on that called cross section. And you can see that now it's built cross sections. So, and if again, if they're straight, go ahead and select the smooth option. And now that we have that, we can come down here, and in the modifier stack we can add surface, and it will create a really nice drapey looking surface for us. Okay, so that is one way that you can create a skirt. You can put in a number of different verts and make it drapey, but you want to make sure that you are creating those within the same line. They're not separate lines, they're just separate splines within that same line object. So it's a little bit different than Maya, and then you want to select on those splines in succession so that when you create your cross sections and then your surface, it'll know what direction to go. Any additional information on how to create patterns or ClothWorks, cloth and garment, it'll give you lots of information about how to do that. Even those who with fitted garments have special ways. Now this is all from my pattern making days. This is all very similar to pattern making, where you need to tell the software where to sew those darts in here, as well as the long form fitting darts. Just cut those areas out and your cloth simulator will create the shape that you wanted. Alright, so I have some basic bodice geometry begun just by duplicating the surface of my figure, and now all I'm concerned with doing here is getting that shaped up the way that I want it by adding geometry or cutting away a little bit more to create a nice rounded line there, bridge along these shoulders to give myself a finished strap along there. Let's see, bridge is a graphite modeling tool. Okay, so I have my edge selected, and I come right up here to graphite modeling tools, go to bridge tools, and you cannot see this interface that's popped up here, but I can increase the number of polygons across the strap there so that when I add those, then I have enough to be able to come in here and shape that up the way that I want it. Okay, so that gives me a beginning to the shape. Now you want to make that a separate object if you're going to run a cloth sim on that, so that the fabric behaves like fabric over your object, and not paint the bodice, even though it's tight fitting. You don't want to paint that against the body if you're going to do a cloth sim. So hope that gets you started, and then you'll just be coming in here and adding polygons or cutting away edges and forming this shape up the way that you want it. And if you have a lot of sculpting to do here, remember just to work on the side, because then you can mirror that over. And let's see, go to object mode, select on that, select on these polygons, delete, basement, object, you can do an instance to start, and so now you can just simply come in here and modify this geometry. We'll do a silhouette change, and whatever you do to this side of the geometry will also be done to that side. And once you have the garment in place, and I would suggest that you take the time to go ahead and match the number of knots in your skirt geometry to the number of vertices in your bodice geometry, because once this is then converted, and we're going to do that now, So right down here in the bottom of the modifier stack, you would look for an option called Surface. View Steps and Render Steps is where you would change your options to get less or more resolution before you convert that to editable poly. So once you have that set, you can right click on editable poly or editable patch and convert that to editable poly, and then you get a much cleaner looking mesh. Now this you can work with together. You would attach. If you are working with an instance object, what you will need to do is go ahead and right click on that instanced object. You can write down here to convert to poly, and now you can attach those pieces as well as your newly created skirt piece. And once those are all one piece, and you can come in here and very carefully go ahead and weld your verts together. You can do that by coming down here to the weld tool, clicking on the options, and you won't be able to see this in the video capture, but this will give you tolerances, and you can scroll left and right on the option key there and be able to weld your verts together. The other way that you can do that, it's a little bit more precise, is to snap weld individual verts by clicking on the weld key. You select one vertex at a time and snap that to your verts. You can use the snap tool right up here. Make sure that your vertex option is selected, and then when you click and drag that, it'll change your cursor and you will be able to snap to that vert and weld that. There we go. And so you would just go around the garment and continue to stitch those. Try to avoid triangles. They don't subdivide well, so it would be better to continue trial and error to make sure that you get the same number of edge loops on your skirt as you have on your bodice before you begin this process.